After considerable soul-searching and discussion with my family, I've decided to ask the BC Liberal Party executive to hold a leadership convention at the earliest possible date to select a new leader of the party.
BC's Premier Gordon Campbell has announced that he is stepping down. Canada's longest-serving premier has seen his popularity plummet, mostly due to the outrage over the new HST there. But this is just the latest political shift in a wave of change right across the country. Last week, Rob Ford elected as Toronto's mayor after his campaign focused exclusively on cutting costs. And in Calgary, voters choose Naheed Nanchi as the city's new mayor, the first Muslim mayor in Canadian history. With reaction to all this, we are joined by TV host Alise Mills in Vancouver, radio host Rob Breckenridge in Calgary, and radio host Ben Mercer in Toronto. Good to talk to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Alise, let's go with the breaking news right now. And Gordon Campbell, was this a surprise? How did people there react?
It wasn't a surprise, Seamus. I mean, I think the Premier had indicated that he was gearing up for this term as being a legacy. I think what was a surprise was yesterday. There had been some rumors around the Premier's address 2 weeks ago, but yesterday I think it knocked all of us over. A lot of us were surprised, and I think some of us were a little bit sad.
So the HST, I mean, he made an announcement that in order to make sure it was, I think, relatively revenue neutral, there would be a sharp cut in income tax, hoping that that may rejuvenate the HST campaign, but it doesn't seem to have happened.
No, I think that the initial problem of where the government came out on their communications around the HST, just, you know, they got stuck in that kind of juggernaut of not being able to communicate the message too little, too late. People had enough time to form their opinions, and there was enough time for a lot of factless information to go out there.
Yeah.
And I think it was extremely hard for the Premier to be able to communicate from that point.
So, Ben, let me ask you, I mean, HST, it was introduced in Ontario. It doesn't seem to have had a lasting backlash against it, but can we see something similar happening here?
For Dalton McGuinty, I mean, you're talking about, Teflon McGuinty. He has a great ability of surviving things like tax hikes and increased user fees. He managed to survive all of that. Certainly for the City of Toronto with the election of Rob Ford, I mean, there's a reversal of that. You're seeing a rejection of that on the city level. For Torontonians, they have seen for the last 8 years taxes go up provincially and in the City of Toronto. And I think Rob Ford's very clear message of stopping the gravy train at City Hall has resonated for just that fact. But on the provincial level, we haven't really seen the fallout, certainly to the tune on the West Coast with Dalton McGuinty. Let's
talk about Rob Ford, because I want your opinion on this, what you're hearing from your listeners. Is this kind of a unique situation where there was a reaction against David Miller and an overspending, or at least perceived overspending, or is this a shift to the right of Canada's largest city?
Oh, it's definitely about money. I mean, it all comes down to money. I mean, I think for most Canadians, you're surviving a recession, you're trying to get through. At home, you're cutting bills, you're getting rid of extravagances, and people are sick of seeing taxes increased and hearing about councillors and big, budgets that they have for their office. And this is solely about money. Again, Torontonians have been hit provincially and on the city level with new user fees and taxes. I think this is a rejection of that. You got to remember, Rob Ford as a politician is, in my opinion, a bit of a questionable character. I mean, you can't love his personal life. He's faced DUI charges, pot possession charges. He was accused of assaulting his wife. He's shown elements of homophobia, xenophobia. He's made racial slurs. He's not the most endorsable person, but his politics certainly resonate with Torontonians.
Let's take it over to Rob. A lot of Canadians, I think, were surprised when Naheed Nanchi got elected by the people of Calgary. Was it a split of the Conservative vote that got him there, or was it a real desire for change?
Yeah, I think it was more the latter. I mean, Naheed Nanchi, I suppose, in a sense, was the progressive candidate, maybe the liberal candidate, but more so than anything, he was kind of the outsider candidate. I mean, Calgary has had, people tend to forget this, especially people outside Calgary, sort of a string of kind of liberal or left-of-center mayors, and it becomes a different dynamic here when it comes to municipal politics. But even Naheed Nanchi, and you look at the kind of campaign he ran, he was talking a lot about, overspending at City Hall and how City Council had sort of lost control when it came to tax increases. So he was sort of almost a progressive kind of liberal, rein in spending, lower taxes kind of candidate, which made him very interesting. But I think more than anything, he was an outsider, and what hurt the perceived front runner was, in a way, perhaps a splitting of the vote, but a perception, and the head Nenshi did a great job of tying him to the existing city council. And there was such a frustration here with the status quo, the way city council was wasting money on a lot of projects, and just kind of the bickering and the silliness. So it was, I think, a real hunger for change. And this was someone who ran as successfully as an outsider, was able to tap into a lot of that frustration. And so, things don't often change a lot in Calgary politics or Alberta politics. When you look at the kind of trouble that the provincial government's been having in the polls, especially in Calgary, you look at the municipal election here, things are getting interesting.
Rob, Ben, Alise, it's certainly one thing about political shakeups. It certainly makes our jobs a lot more interesting. Thank you very much. Good to talk to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.